In this lesson, we're going to export our motion design to NUKE and dive into Maya and generate some simulations for the button presses. And here we have the motion design, and I'm pretty happy with it. I've gone ahead in the UI and cranked the samples right up to 64. That's a little bit overkill, but it's really needed when the text starts to scroll. We really need a lot of samples because otherwise you'll be able to see the sampling if your samples were too low. So all good here. Now to export, let's just turn off the footage so that we don't export that. And we're just going to, well, I'm just going to export this as a JPEG sequence. We don't really have any high dynamic range values that we need to preserve, so JPEG will be fine, and we'll keep the disk usage right down to speed up our workflow. And so I'm just going to choose a JPEG sequence preset from here that I have. I'm going to crank the quality up to 10, and we don't even need an alpha channel because we are just using the limits as the alpha channel. So let's save that. I've already got lots and lots of pre-renders, but basically just make a folder and save it in here. I'll just call this UI. Well, I've already exported it, so I'll call it UI version 2, and then just name it UI version 2 dot frame numbers and then .jpg. And render that out, and that is all good for NUKE. What we want to now do is jump into Maya and begin our simulations. Alrighty, in Maya, let's set our project file, set project, and I'm working in J drive at the moment, so mine's all set, but just set your project to wherever you're working, and let's go ahead and open up the camera. So I'm just going to go to the cameras directory and open up the Maya version. And once we've done that, let's actually save this as its own scene so that we're not overwriting that camera file. So let's go scenes, and I'm just going to call this pond version 1. And let's look through our camera and set our image plane. So here's the image plane, and let's just tell it where our clips are. Clips, undistorted footage. And we want the first one, and we want to use an image sequence and just check that that's sticking. Yes, it is. Alrighty, so the scene's pretty small. We can tell that each unit is quite large. So our scene is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units across. So let's come up to Dynamics menu, and under Fluid Effects, let's go to Pond and just tear that menu off. And we want to create a pond. I'm just going to make it a size of 5 for now. But what we can do is just hit Control A to get to the attributes of this. I'm going to make it 7 wide, maybe 2 or 3 up, and we'll keep the height at 0.75. We've got keep voxels square ticked. So even if we were to maybe go 70, on one, it's going to keep the voxel square, which is really handy for us because if you do happen to scale this, you will not keep the voxel square and you'll get some weird results. So try not to scale, just change the size. That's quite important. And once that's done, let's create a wake. So I'm just going to go to the settings here, and let's just reset these settings. I'm going to increase the wake intensity to 10, but we can always change this later on if that's too much or too little. In my experience, that's about right. And I want to make this about the size of the character's finger because we are simulating the character's finger pressing the table. So that's sort of finger sized, and once we've got that, let's create a locator, and this is going to sort of drive the animation for this little wake here. And if we go to Window Outliner, what we can do is just put the wake inside the locator. And for now, I'm just going to hide the pond, and we want to move this locator up a little bit because currently it's sitting on the ground. I'm going to move it to a Y value of 1, And what we just want to do is come along and animate the position of this to emulate the finger pressing the ground or the table. So I can see that this frame is where the button is pressed. So what I'm going to do is just on the frame previously key the Y value, and then on this actual frame set it to value of 0, and you'll want auto key turned on for this so that it creates keys by itself, and then on the next frame it comes back up to 1. So it's a 1 frame button press. Even though the character's finger may stay there for 2 frames, I'm going to keep it just a quick 1 frame press, and that will generate a nice little wake in the pond. Now we might want to line this up a little bit better, so we can move the locator on X, Y, Z to line it up, and we also want to keyframe X and Z because we need to do multiple presses here. So let's see, we have another button press here, so key at the translate Y, it is pressed and then comes back up to 1, and then we'll need to key X and Z also. So let's key X and Z, and on this frame move them to where they need to be, and then it goes back up again. So that's good, and just repeat this process until we have all the button presses. The very last one is a dragging movement, so let's do this one. The character sort of presses down with here, so let's go translate Y key. Actually, let's key everything. So it's on the ground plane where the finger is, and then the character starts to scroll down. Let's just see what axis this is. I should know it's Z. About here, the character starts to scroll. It goes off screen. And let's just make sure that that's accurate. And that will be the pond off screen, but just in case, we'll also key translate Y so that the wake isn't constantly just sitting there. Okay, that's good. So just go through and animate the rest of the presses, and once we've done that, we'll take a look at the simulation we've created and tweak some of the settings in the next lesson.